Let's review the digestion of different types of food. We learned that there are three macro foods that your body needs to turn food into energy. The first one is carbohydrates or starches, and the second that we learned about was proteins. We learned about carbohydrates and starches when you chewed a saltine cracker. So the chemical digestion of carbohydrates and starches happens in your mouth when the enzyme in your saliva amylase breaks down the starches into glucose or sugar. Then we did a lab about proteins. For protein, we used egg. We learned that proteins are going to be chemically digested in the stomach. And the enzymes pepsin and the chemical hydrochloric acid in your stomach work together in conjunction to break down proteins into what we call amino acids. However, we still have one more food to cover, and that would be the chemical digestion of fats. Basically, we're asking ourselves, do oil and water mix? In our chemistry unit, we found out oil and water do not mix, or oil is not soluble in water. This could be a problem because you are mostly made of water, yet you need fats and oils in order to survive. So your body must have some way to turn oil and fats into something that is soluble in water. What we did is activity 4.5, and we did a solubility test with oil and water, and then we did a solubility test with oil and water and soap detergent. Detergent water acts similarly to an enzyme in your body that allows oils and fats to mix together. First, we need to get you some definitions of some terms. So first is the gallbladder. The gallbladder is an organ at the bottom of the liver that excretes bile into the small intestines. However, you must be thinking, what is bile? Well, bile is an excretion that contains lipase, to which you must ask, what is lipase? Lipase is an enzyme that allows fats and water to form an emulsion. And lipase is represented in the lab that we did when we used detergent, because the detergent has similar types of properties to the lipase when it comes to making what we call an emulsion, or a mixture of two liquids that are not soluble in each other. Pause the video and record these in your WordWall spreadsheet. So in the experiment in the first test tube, when you shake up the oil and the water, the droplets of oil disperse and become very small. However, when given time to settle, because the oil is less dense than the water, it's going to float back to the top. And here we have a soap molecule. A soap molecule has special properties. A soap molecule on one end is polar, meaning it has a charge. On the opposite end, it is nonpolar, meaning it doesn't have a charge. This is what allows oil and water to mix together, because one half, or the polar half, mixes well with water, and then the other half, the nonpolar half, mixes well with oil. So what happens is when soap surrounds a droplet of oil on a very small scale, one half is mixing with the oil and the other half is mixing with the water. So in our second test tube, when we shook up the oil and the water and the soap, the droplets of oil were surrounded by the soap. And then when given time to settle, they stay separated from each other. So this brings us to principle number 5, chemical digestion. Chemical digestion of fats is when the gallbladder releases lipase into the small intestine to turn fats into water-soluble fats, or that emulsion of fat and water. Now the particles are small enough that they can diffuse in and out of the cells of your body to be used. Please write this on your scientific principle sheet. So now we have the full picture about how the 3 macronutrients are digested in the body. Now we can add that fats are digested with 2 organs. There is bile that contains lipase that is in the gallbladder, and it is released into the small intestines. And then lipase is an enzyme that allows fats to break apart into smaller pieces and become what we call an emulsion of fat and water, or something water soluble.